Hey guys, we're here today to tell you why I went with a Mk6 GTI. Now there were three options that I was really heavily considering when I was searching for a car. There was an R53 Mini Cooper S, there was WRX, whatever I could afford really, and a GTI. So I talked a little bit about why I went with the Mk6 GTI in the introduction to this car, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper into why I specifically wanted all these things and why specifically a Mk6. Just a little bit more to tell you why I chose this, and maybe this helps you determine what car you want. You might even choose a WRX or a Mini Cooper over the GTI. Now, like I said, I knew I wanted a hatchback. Really knew that. That's why the decision was between a Mini Cooper, WRX, GTI. Now, like I said before, I had researched a lot on which GTI people consider to be the best. Now, I had previous experience with the Mark IV generation of Volkswagen with the Jetta, absolutely loved it. But my wife really didn't want to go that old. I know it's like, it's fair. We want to make sure we have a car that's going to last for our family, and that's completely understandable. So, of course, I wanted to make my wife happy, get a newer car, and I mean, like, newer cars are usually pretty good anyway. I was like, yeah, we'll probably aim newer. So I started researching more into the GTIs, and I was like, okay, Mark V, people really like. Personally, the body style, I wasn't a huge fan of in four-door, because I knew I wanted four doors. Just having dealt with them before, I knew they were awesome because you could transport people around, you can haul a bunch of camera equipment in the back, and some weird thing people mentioned is they didn't like the size of the two-door GTIs because the doors were just so long. You park at a parking spot and you just hit every other door around you. I was like, yeah, that's fair. It's not something you would think about would be an issue, but apparently people, you gotta want a two-door to deal with the two doors. And so then I researched the Mark VII. People absolutely loved it, and I know Jeremy Clarkson has one. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a decent one, but it was just a little too expensive, a little far out of our price range. Because if you guys know Dave Ramsey, we're trying to do that method, getting debt-free, paying for everything in cash as much as we can. So we committed to paying for this car outright in cash. And Mark VII was just a little bit out of our price range, especially at dealers when they're still $18,000, $19,000. And even sixes with good mileage, 60,000 miles, were in the $13,000, $14,000 range. But then I was trying to talk to my wife about a Mini Cooper because I really wanted one. And I was like, I'll deal with two doors for a Mini. That sounds awesome. I've ridden in one, I've driven one. They're so much fun. Just light little go-karts. They're so sweet. But our friend Geneva, she has one, manual transmission and all that. And Hannah got to ride around in it, and she just thought it was a little too small. I mean, a lot of girls like the bigger car because it makes them feel safe, and that's completely fair. But I like the small, sportier car, and to each his own. But she just almost immediately said, no, you're not getting a Mini. I was like, I really want a Mini, really want one. They're super fun. But that'll be a project car down the road, so I can branch out away from Volkswagen and Audi and try to appeal to a couple more people than just the VAG group. But anyway, I was also a WRX, and I really wanted a 2013 hatchback, genuine hatchback. They were, WRXs are so expensive. Pretty sure there's still like new list price on some of them. I found one in California that was 50,000 miles, but it was like $22,000. I was like, I'm not gonna pay that much for a WRX. I've ridden in a couple, and the interior always just seems to be a couple years behind. Like, people complain about the cheap plastics and stuff. I don't care about that. It's just the interior of a car. Like, stuff's fine. But the Subaru is just a little bit behind. I test drove a couple. I was actually, before I got the Xterra, I was gonna buy a Subaru Outback from the dealership, and it was fine. It was an 08, but it just felt more like a 03. Like, it's just a little bit behind. And I mean, it was a fine place to be, but if I wanted a performance car, I was paying a good chunk of change for a car, I really wanted to make sure it's some place that I wanted to sit in and be in for long road trips, because that's what I really want to do. That's what I love. You guys know that I've driven across the entire country before, and in that Audi with leather seats, just a fantastic ride, made it so much more worth it, even though I was by myself. So I looked at the Subarus and I was like, oh, those would be fun. All-wheel drive, like, that is a huge box on my list, was an all-wheel drive if I could afford it. Just unfortunately couldn't. I mean, there's also not a lot of snow in Memphis, so whatever. So that left the GTI. Like I said, I did some research on the 5 and the 6 and the 7, and ultimately landed on the 6 because people didn't like them, even though there was not really anything wrong with them other than they didn't really update any of the drivetrain from the 5. I was like, people don't like them. I think it looks better than the 7 and the 5 now that I've actually seen one in person. And the prices are going down because people aren't really trying to buy them because they want the 5 or the 7. I was like, it's a win, 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 win. Yeah, everything's a win here. It's like, that's what ultimately led me to trying to find a Mk6. I knew I wanted 4 doors, like I said. And with Volkswagen, Audi, interiors are always just so nice. And I wanted to see if I could get leather. Originally, I wanted the tartan seats, the cloth, but then the more I thought about it, and I was like, the leather in that Audi was just so good and so comfortable, and heated seats. I mean, you could have heated cloth seats, but usually heated seats are associated with leather. Like, the heated seats were just amazing in the winter. I was like, try to go for leather, actually, if I can. Ultimately, the engine and drivetrain weren't the huge driving factors in what I wanted to get, because WRX, Mini, and GTI are all relatively similar. The Mini's definitely got a little bit less horsepower, but a couple mods and you're at 200. They're all sitting around 200. I mean, really rounding for the Mini. But it's just, to me, that didn't make too much of a difference. Ultimately, I want a V6, but GTI doesn't come in a V6, so like, can't really have that option. And I always did really want to have a forced induction vehicle, whether that was the supercharged R53 Mini or turbocharged GTI, and I got the turbo on the GTI, and it's awesome. I never actually experienced too much of a turbocharged car, so it's a ton of fun. Talk more about that later, but ultimately, that's really why I chose a Mk6 GTI over all the other options I could have picked out there. Now, hopefully, this informs your decision on what car you want to get down the road, and hopefully, it's a GTI. But ultimately, if not, you pick the car that you want, and that's what matters. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Remember, Jesus loves you. Have a good day.